Hi, everybody. So, tonight and tomorrow, we're going to be doing a flipped classroom. So, you're going to watch this video, and then you're going to come into class tomorrow and just get straight to working on our activity. So, tonight, we're going to be talking about literary devices, but specifically imagery, and what imagery is, what it does, how it's used, and why it's important in literature. So, what is imagery? Imagery is visually descriptive or figurative language, especially in a literary work. So it uses vivid, descriptive language that appeals to the five senses sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch to create a mental picture for the reader and immerse them in the story. So, what does it do? It helps to make writing more realistic and it helps to evoke emotions in the reader. It deepens the reader's understanding and it deepens the reader's connection to the text by showing rather than telling. So, how is it used? Some techniques used for creating imagery include using figurative language like metaphors and similes, or using concrete, descriptive words that appeal to specific senses. Again, it appeals to the five senses sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste, but it also appeals to things like movement and internal sensations. So, for example, hunger, thirst, and pain. Some examples of imagery are these sentences here. So, the golden sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. So, when you read this sentence, you can close your eyes and visualize exactly what it's saying. You can see the golden sun. They don't just say sun, they say the golden sun. So, you can see the color of the sun and it painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. So, they don't just say a sunset, they describe exactly what the sunset looks like. And so you can visualize the streaks of orange and pink in the sky as you're reading. Another example is the old book had water spots across its spine. Some of the pages yellowed. So again, with showing rather than telling, we could have just said an old book. But instead, we describe it by saying it has water spots across its spine and the pages are yellowed. So you can picture the yellowed pages of the book. And it just helps you to understand better how old the book is that we're talking about. And then another example, the boy had rosy cheeks. So instead of saying maybe the boy was embarrassed, we're showing rather than telling. So instead of thinking of a boy that's embarrassed, you're picturing a boy who's blushing. So now for our activity tomorrow, when you come into class, well, before you come into class, I want you to think of a book that you like and maybe go through it tonight, or you can just bring the book to class tomorrow and look through it tomorrow because we'll have all period to work on this. But think of a book that you like, bring it into class tomorrow, and you're going to choose a small section or a page from that book, and you're going to make a short comic book panel out of it. So I will have drawing materials in class, and you're going to want to pay it. So again, pick one section, not a chapter, just like maybe a paragraph or a page, and try to pick one that has a lot of imagery. So when you think of the book that you like, is there a specific scene that stands out to you that you can like almost see playing in your mind when you think about it? Find that part of the book, find that page or that paragraph or whatever it may be. And I want you to reread it and you're going to pay attention to the imagery used in the scene. What are you visualizing? What do the characters look like? What are they doing? Do they look happy, surprised, or hurt? Use the imagery in the book to draw what you see in your mind. And so you're going to be working on that tomorrow in class. I will have the drawing materials in class. And then after you make your 8 panels, I want you to write a short paragraph explaining how the imagery in the book helped you to imagine the scene and why you made the creative choices that you did. And at the end of class, you're going to turn in the 8 panels and the paragraph. And I have an example here of what this should look like. Okay, so here I have an example of what I want this to look like. So to the left, I have a picture from a page in the first Percy Jackson book, The Lightning Thief. And I chose this scene because mainly of the trident that appears above his head. That always stood out to me. I read it as a kid and I always remember that scene very vividly. And so I took this page and I created an 8-panel comic book page. So in the book, you can see it says, I could feel the cuts on my chest closing up. Some of the campers gasped. So if you see in the 3rd panel, Percy is covered in cuts and bruises and whatnot, because that's what I saw in my mind. And then later on, it says, by the time I looked up, the sign was already fading, but I could still make out the hologram of green light spinning and gleaming, a 3-tipped spear, a trident. So rather than just saying there was a trident above my head, Rick Riordan, the author of this book, describes it by saying it was like a hologram of green light and it was spinning and gleaming, and I can just picture that in my mind when I read it. And so that's what I drew, and I want you to do that when you're reading this page. Draw exactly what you see. And then when you write your paragraph, I want you to explain why you drew what you drew and why imagery helps us visualize these things and recreate different versions of the text, like in other forms of media. So think about that tonight. Think about your favorite book. Bring it into class tomorrow. And I will have supplies in class and you can start working on your comic book, and I'll be around in case you need help with anything. See you tomorrow.